As glamorous Bernadette, today's guest is the heart of the hit new musical Priscilla Queen of the Desert. This week he learned that he's nominated for a 2011 Tony Award. Please welcome Tony Sheldon.
Hi, Paul.
How you doing?
Good, mate. Very good.
This has been sort of a whirlwind week.
It's been extraordinary. I really did not anticipate this was going to happen, and I've been nominated for all 4 awards. So the Drama Desk, the Drama League, the Outer Critics Circle, and this. So for a boy from Australia, it's a bit of a shock.
You have been to a lot of award ceremonies with this role. You played the part in Australia and in London, and you have awards like a Glugs Award.
Yes, that's a press thing.
Okay, and you have a Mo Award.
Poem. Yes, the Mo is an Australian vaudeville comedian, so they all mean something in Australia. They just sound weird over here.
They do sound weird.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Priscilla came to you originally because you were playing Roger Debris in The Producers in Australia.
Yeah, I hadn't worked with Simon Phillips, the director, before, but he runs the Melbourne Theatre Company, so I'd known him, of course. And I think, they made the connection. Oh, look, there's a man wearing a dress. We'll offer him this workshop. And I really wasn't interested in taking on another role that involved frocking up because, the pigeonhole, warning. But I rocked along to the workshop, which was for 10 days of my life, I thought. And suddenly I thought, this has got legs. This really hangs together very well as a piece of theatre. Right. It's that wonderful thing of a road movie that every scene happens with a different set of characters in a different location. And I thought, this is very theatrical. This works beautifully. And there I was in a full beard and a pair of shorts playing this role, and I could see the people watching me were believing the character. And I thought, if I can get away with this without all the outside trappings, something must be happening. And so then I actively sought the part.
And you must have been familiar with the film, which is a huge Australian crossover movie in the US.
I wasn't hugely familiar. I went to a private press screening of it in 1994, but it came out at exactly the same time as another movie called Muriel's Wedding, which was Toni Collette and Rachel Griffiths' first big break. And that was the one I fell in love with, was Muriel's Wedding, because I was actually working with Rachel in The Sisters Rosenzweig at the time. And Priscilla sort of really didn't impinge on me that much. And so it really wasn't on my radar. And I only knew that I didn't want to play it like Terrence Stamp. That was the one thing, because I thought it was a rather glum performance. And I thought Bernadette was supposed to have been a big star at Les Girls, and so what's your problem? And then when I met Terrence Stamp, he came and saw the show. I heard him give an interview where he said he wanted to play the pain of somebody trapped in the wrong body. And I thought, okay, that's your take on it. I want to play somebody who once had a very glittering, glamorous career. And I know those people. I grew up around those stars of Les Girls, and I thought I'm going to go in that direction with it.
Well, Terrence Stamp, is it true that he said you were effing fantastic in the show?
He just, the only thing he said was on opening night, he just looked at me and said, Tony effing Sheldon, and just came and put his arm around me. And I thought, I think that's a stamp of approval. And then he turned up at the next matinee by himself and came backstage and just smiled at me. There was a wistfulness when he came and saw the musical and saw that a bunch of people had moved it on to a different level.
I thought he was brilliant in the movie when I first saw it, and I didn't. The one thing I was nervous about the musical was, who is going to play that part? And you're brilliant, because you're right, it's completely different. It's definitely softer, more feminine, but you're both brilliant in totally different ways.
Yes, it's a completely different take.
Was it nerve-wracking to know that he was watching? Did you know he was in the audience?
Yeah, it was, but it was also nerve-wracking to know that the eyes of the world were on me. I mean, when you're playing a role that has been played by somebody so definitively, and I find it very interesting over here seeing people on the chat room saying that I'm doing Terrence Stamp's performance, because absolutely nothing could be further from my mind or my intention. I mean, really, I certainly haven't even seen the film in 17 years.
Well, clearly you didn't get the memo that you don't read the chat rooms.
Do you know, I was warned. I was told not to, and it's a fascination of the horrible. It's like watching a car crash. You can't look away. And my God, they're cruel.
Yeah. There's no good to come out of that.
No, there's not. This way madness lies.
One thing that's remarkable sitting here with you is you are so feminine on stage. It's amazing how, and I don't get that from you here. It's totally different energy. How did you capture that?
I don't know. I really don't know. That was the thing that when I did the workshop, I just thought somewhere this woman is in. Tova Feldschuh, who I've become friends with, says, if you're lucky once or twice in your life, you connect with the role in your soul. And this is one of those occasions where I just knew she was there and I could access her. And then I just had to look after the externals, and that's the one thing I really have to concentrate on, is the way I'm standing, the way I'm walking, the way I'm holding myself. Because if I catch myself walking like a fella, it throws me off my game. But I have no trouble tapping into her at all, and I never have. And so I think I have no embarrassment about it. I think a lot of times guys play women and there's a part of them censoring and going, oh, I don't want people to think I'm really like that.
Right.
And I don't have any fear about that. My responsibility is to put Bernadette on stage.
Right.
And I love her. I really love her. And my partner has said, why don't you bring that lovely woman home sometimes, because she's really nice. And I think she's really nice too. I love her. And yeah, I don't know where she comes from.
I want to ask you about Bette Midler. Bette Midler is the producer of Priscilla.
She's one of our 35 producers.
Right,
she's
right.
our
One
lead
of many
producer,
producers.
yes.
But what is Bette Midler like? Were you excited to get to meet her?
I was, and the awful thing was that when she came and saw the show in Toronto, she kept away from us, and I think she felt she just didn't want to bother us. So we never got to meet her for the longest time, and one day I saw her being ushered past my dressing room. It was like Rosemary's Baby, you know, carrying her past the doorway. And it wasn't until we came to New York that we were officially introduced to her.
Wow.
And she's very businesslike, and she wished us all well. But now that we're all starting to do publicity together, and she's loosened up a little bit, and she's lovely. She's just exactly the way you'd imagine her to be. She's funny and she's charming, and she's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your family. You come from a real showbiz family in Australia.
My mother is a big musical comedy star in
Yeah.
Australia, and she did Pajama Game, she did Gypsy, she did Anything Goes, she did Wildcat, that Lucille Ball flop. It was a flop in Australia too. She did 42nd Street for years and years and years. Beauty and the Beast was Pirates of Penzance were her latest things. And my father was a dancer.
Yeah.
He was the steam heat guy in Pajama Game.
Oh, wow.
So he was the first Fosse dancer in Australia back in the 50s.
Now, your father, there's a sad story. Your father committed suicide when you were a boy.
He did when I was like 2 days after my 11th birthday.
Wow. So how does an 11-year-old find out his father?
We were both told. My mother and I were touring in Oliver. I was one of the kids in Oliver. My mother was playing Nancy. And we were on the train between Sydney and Melbourne on the tour. And the police stopped the train in the middle of the night and told us that we were going home to the house, and they told us he had killed himself in the house. And the alarming thing was that as the train was pulling in to the station, it was like a scene out of a movie. All the press were standing, and it was winter and in overcoats. And my mother grabbed me and said, "We're saying it was a heart attack," because she knew that, you know, this to say that he'd killed himself. And he wasn't just a dancer at that point. He'd moved up to become a television producer.
Right,
and so
right.
they were Australia's golden showbiz couple. And I was performing at that time. I started when I was 7. So I was on national television every week as well. We were the famous show, you know, Doris Day and her kid and her husband, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And suddenly to have this mysterious death in the family. So we put it out that it was a heart attack, but not for long. The tabloids got hold of it, and it was front page news. What killed Frank Sheldon? And there was this like investigation, an inquest into it, and it was really ugly.
What was your father going through? I mean,
their marriage was breaking up, and it was that competitive thing of her career eclipsed his.
wow.
And they'd started off this young, idealistic couple, and she became a national star. He wanted her to retire in the 60s. He suddenly said, "I want you to stop performing and be a housewife." And she went, "No, this is not who I am. You know, I've always had this career." She grew up, her parents were performers in vaudeville. This was her life. And the marriage was breaking up. She wanted a divorce. It got really ugly, and he took the easy way out, I suppose, is the way. And it totally wrecked my mother because of the guilt, of course. She thought it was her fault, and she became a prescription drug addict.
Oh my
and she became addicted to a drug called pethidine, which is the next step down from morphine. And so she was trying to function and raise a kid as a single mother, and it all just imploded at one point, and she ended up in rehab for a year. She triumphed, and she got gypsy. She made her comeback.
So you had a tough young life.
Yeah.
What did all that do to you? I mean, you were obviously
I don't know.
Professionally working alongside them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I was. And the thing was that when my dad died, that all got taken away from me as well. I got thrown into a boarding school. The headmaster of my school said the best thing for him was to be in a stable environment. Well, it wasn't at all, because coming from that life, suddenly I was in a boarding school where everybody wanted me to play football and hang out with kids my own age. I didn't know from kids my own age playing football. You know, I wanted to know my cast albums and, you know, see Cheetah Rivera on the TV. So I, you know, was totally pulled out of my life, and that loused me up. I suffered from depression for the next 40 years, and you know, I drank, I did drugs, I did all of that, you know.
Wow.
And it's only in the last 10 years I've gotten off that treadmill.
Really?
Yeah. And I think this part landed in my lap almost like, you know, all right, now you're ready to take this on.
Wow.
I don't think I would have been able to do it.
What do you think inspired you to turn around? What was the breaking point for you?
It wasn't even a breaking point. I was a very heavy smoker. I was a big drinker, and I got noises off the play. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to run up and down all those stairs with my lungs. So I stopped smoking, and then I got pancreatitis. And the doctor said, do you drink a lot? I said, not an enormous amount, but I drink regularly. I drink every day, and only wine. And they said, this is going to kill you if you keep that up.
Wow.
So I went, all right. And I stopped that night, and I never missed it for 1 second. And I suddenly thought, I don't even crave it or anything. It was just a habit. It wasn't even like a dependence.
Right.
It was just a habit I'd gotten into. And so I just changed my lifestyle. I just turned everything around. And then I got the producers, and then I got Priscilla.
Yeah.
And suddenly I had the stamina to do it. And maybe I thought, well, it was time. The universe was telling me there's something else around the corner for you. You better be ready for it.
So at what point, when did you come out of the closet? When did you know you were gay?
I was never in it. I knew when I was about 4.
Wow.
Yeah, I was never in the closet.
Did your parents know you were gay at that?
Probably. Yeah. I remember one weekend coming home from boarding school when I was about 9, and my mother had packed, you know, towels and things for the whole term, and she'd given me a pink towel. And I remember coming home and saying, can I have a different colour? And my mother turned to a friend and said, there's hope! I remember that day. I remember I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I thought,
it was a horrible moment that you can now look back on.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we had the talk when I was 17.
Okay.
She said, you know, is there anything you want to tell me? And I went, no. And she said, you know, are you worried I'm going to find out you're homosexual? And I said, oh, okay, is this the talk we're having? All right. And so I told her whatever she wanted to know that was going to put her mind at rest. She was just worried I was going to end up, you know, old and lonely. But I've been in a relationship now for 31 years, very happily.
And obviously this relationship has survived all this stuff you're talking about.
Yeah,
in terms of...
And he's an actor as well, a very,
Right.
very brilliant actor who's put his career on hold for a couple of years while we go through this extraordinary journey around the world. And he's going back to do Importance of Being Earnest for Simon Phillips, our director.
Oh, okay.
And Jeffrey Rush is going to be playing Lady Bracknell. Do you think a woman will ever reclaim that role? So he'll go back and do that until the end of the year. And if I'm still here, fingers crossed that I will be, he'll come back and join me again.
And your partner's name is Tony Taylor.
Tony Taylor, another Tony.
Two Tonys.
Surrounded by Tonys.
When you first met him, did you think, oh, this isn't going to work? We both have the same name.
No, it was love at first sight for me. We were on a show, and I walked in on the first day and went, who's this? He was not quite so interested. He was already coming off another relationship. But I wooed and won him.
So you've played a lot of great roles in Australia. I was looking at your credits and I thought, wow, I wish I could, because we know you from Priscilla, and then you see this whole variety of roles. What are some of your sort of all-time favorite things you've done on stage?
Well, it's interesting because I never set out to be in musicals, but I've loved the work that I've done. Company was a show that I adored. I didn't play Bobby, I played Paul. 2 days for Amy. I loved that. I could have done that for the rest of my life. And I got to play the baker in Into the Woods, and I got to play Joe Josephson in Merrily, and I did Dick in Dames at Sea, but also I loved doing things like Long Day's Journey into Night. I played Edmund. I played John Barrymore, and I had Hamlet, which I adored. I did Arnold in Torch Song Trilogy. That was the first show that.
Oh yeah. Have you met Harvey Firestein?
Never. I've never had any contact. I wrote him a letter when I went and saw Kate at a fair. I left him a note at the stage door, but he didn't ask to meet me, so that was a pity. So we have
he
not.
He sat in that chair.
Well, this is probably the closest I'm going to get to him. I don't know. But yes, our paths have not yet crossed. I'm told that when he heard that I had the role, that when he saw my family tree, he said, well, coming from that family, he could let him play it. I guess that was the seal of approval. Yes, some fantastic parts. That's why I never left Australia. When everybody else was coming on over here to make their career, my mother and my aunt, I thought, why should I go? I'm getting these fantastic parts.
I've always been dying to go to Australia. It's one of those things. A lot of New Yorkers are dying to go there. So when I go to Australia, what are the 3 things I have to do?
Go to the beach, of course. It's surrounded by
which
Bondi,
beach?
or Tamarama, Glamorama, as it's known. That's where all the smart set go. The topless beach, the models, all preening, yes, looking beautiful. Yes, the beaches are beautiful. I mean, almost anywhere in Sydney, it's a tourist attraction because there's that convict history. So all around Circular Quay, there's all the original pubs and it's all been retained, that original 17th, 18th century look of the place. The whole place is just beautiful. Just get on a bus and explore it.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
No, because it's taken me all this time to get away from it. I've lived there my whole life. I'm used to it. It's home. Yeah. And I have nothing to go back to, really. I mean, there's my mum, but there is also Skype. I don't own anything there. I've always rented, and I'm always on the road. So all my stuff's in storage. I don't have any furniture. All the books and the records are in storage. I'm seeing the world for the first time in my life. This show has enabled me to see Europe for the first time. I lived in London for the first time for a year doing this show. I loved Toronto, the 3 months we spent there. And of course, it's always been my dream to live here in New York. And to be on Broadway, it's inconceivable to me that I'm doing this.
And Tony Night's going to be a big one for you, huh?
Look, I can't even go there with awards. I've lost more awards than I've won, so I can't invest myself in that whole thing. Right. And also because I'm so lost in admiration for the other nominees. I think the Book of Mormon is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen, and Norbert is brilliant, and Joshua Henry I adore. So any one of them, if they won, I would be there cheering. It's so exciting, the whole experience. Just to be up there with them. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. To be sitting here talking to you is a thrill. So
it's a thrill for me too.
It's all just brilliant.
It's great to have you here. It's really just a wonderful performance, and
thank you.
You deserve all the acclaim you are receiving.
Well, thank you so much, Paul.
Well, and thank you for stopping by. And we will see you on Tony Night.
I'll be there. I don't know if Bernadette will be as well, but I'll be there.
Well, thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.